John, welcome back. I'm excited to talk to you. How's it going? How's this past week?
Hey, John, thanks for having me. It has been an interesting and I would say overall a nice, good week since I talked with you last Sunday. We traveled back to Charlotte on Monday and and then um, met, negotiated Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday
Okay.
uh, in Charlotte. And the topics covered were retirement as per the agenda in the work rules, sections 412 and 25. So we start out the week with us providing a Section 28 retirement proposal, not to beat a dead horse and go way back, but just to provide some continuity. Excuse me. Our initial proposal had three different plans as options for the pilots: the current legacy plus a defined contribution, a modified market-based plan that was uh, comprised around a flat dollar formula that I'll talk about briefly, and then a straight defined contribution plan like what you see at Delta, United, American, and throughout the industry. Uh, the company, they countered with the last time we were in Charlotte, which was the TA, but at the 330,000 cap. Uh, that led to some discussion about their perspective, our perspective. Um, the thing about our market plan that we proposed was it was a flat dollar uh, plan, and what I mean by flat dollar was it was a formula based off the top of scale wide body captain rate that had an escalator, so that from here on out, the you would never really negotiate retirement again. It'd be a function of what that top of scale wide body captain rate was, and every pilot would have received the same amount, whether if you're the last person on the seniority list or the or the number one person. So the thing about uh, the, what was in the TA and is still in the company's proposal is their market plan's got 11% compensation that's capped at the IRS 401A 17 compensation limit, which for 2025 is 350. So if you were a top earner that exceeded 350, the most you could have in there as compensation credits was 38,500. If you're making less than 350, then it was 11% of that. What we had proposed with the flat dollar formula was a much higher number, uh, upwards around $50,000 is how it was working out based on looking at the industry pay rates, and that would apply to everybody, which would have been very beneficial to the lower people, the more junior people, because you're getting more money into the program quicker. So the company did embrace that, and part of the reason was it was lacking a work component. In other words, everybody got the same no matter what. We liked it because everybody got the same no matter what, and functioned a lot like a traditional defined benefit plan. So we went back to the drawing board because we heard what they had to say, and we came up with another one that we're calling a hybrid model that has a little bit of their approach and our approach, and that was in our proposal. Whether or not it'll stick, I don't know, and I think it's a really important caveat for people to understand, that we're negotiating, and this is a really fluid environment, and things can change. If both, it's not done until like I like to joke. All older guys like me do. We quote movies. So I go back to one of my favorite from high school, right? Animal House. So it's like Bluto, right? Germans, Pearl Harbor. It's not over until we say it's over. And so what I mean by that is that this is a really fluid negotiation. There's a lot of give and take, yin and yang, however you want to view it. And what we think might be the fix now turns out to be not the correct fix. But I'm confident we're going to be able to arrive at something that will stand on its own merits. I just can't tell you what that is right now, but we know where we want to go. I will tell you one of the reasons why I thought that overall that this was a decent week is that we had really productive dialogue with the company, and we have continued in the retirement part uh, uh, to hammer home that when you start talking about defined contribution, that cash over cap or the spill, however you want to view it, that's a very important concept to us because that's what's everywhere else in the industry now. So we think we might have made some headway in that regard. They're certainly not unclear about our position about that. So that's what we did on Tuesday. We had Alpa national staff with us, our local R&I staff with us. The company had their retirement people. We also had our outside vendor. So I thought Tuesday was a fine day. We're going to continue to work on retirement on our side. They owe us a retirement. Hopefully, sometime in the next time we get together, they're back there costing our proposal and running different scenarios, I guess. And we'll get together because retirement is a main feature of this contract. So that's how we spent Tuesday. So then on Wednesday, we talked about 412 and 25, and the company gave us a proposal. What lies in 412 and 25 are several items that are important to the pilots. Obviously 482B and C is in there. The rigs are in there, and that's very much related to compensation. But some of the other themes that we've talked about were reserve, revisions, very important to our pilots because the way things have been going in the last few years here regarding the ops tempo, and then extensions. We received their proposal. We understood where they were coming from. We went back and talked about it a little bit, and I think we might have caught them off guard a little bit because we received their proposal mid-morning on Wednesday, and we had a proposal back to them in the same area later that day at 4 p.m. And there's some things like in our proposal. I know there's rumors floating out there. Well, Alpa's asking for X amount of money. Notice how my hand went above the screen. And so within our work rules proposal, we've taken this multi-pronged, multifaceted approach, with like 3 or 4 different ways we want to attack extensions or revisions or different ways to improve a reserve pilot's life. We know we weren't going to get all of them. We never expected to get all of them. We're wanting to find out what was going to work and not work between the two parties. We've got a better idea of that, so we've shelled out some of those in our proposal, but we're highly confident that we can get to where we need to be. In the end, 482B and C is still out there. They're still mulling it over. They might come up with an equation that they think works. We've taken a hard look at that, like I've told you last time. The thing about that is, even if there was an equation out there that people could argue, yeah, that could work or not work, and if it was a forward-looking one or a rears one and included this, but it didn't include that, in the end, the thing that's overarching that equation that I could tell you that's not in there in the pilot's world is trust. After what's gone on for the last couple of years here and what's going on right now, that even if there was an equation that was developed, that I adequately described the metric, it's the trust factor, which is such a it's just an overriding thing that would nullify the equation in our viewpoint. So that's still out there, 482B and C. Going forward, the rigs, obviously that's compensation because how you get paid your W-2 or in the end, on your monthly line guarantee is your hourly rate times however those trips are being flown. Some of the duty periods, trip rig. We still don't have the company's Section 3. We've been asking for that for a long time. They have chosen not to do that up until this point. I understand that. But what we have agreed to with going forward is that we're just going to set the rig part of 412 and 25 aside because it's an economic thing. And when we get their hourly rate, we'll take a look at their rigs. We're going to see how low they've anchored themselves in the pay rate and whether or not we're going to need to apply rigs to get us to where we need to be. We think we've made some headway with them on extensions more so than revisions. Revisions are still very important to the pilots, and we're going to continue to address that. So like I said earlier, we caught them a little bit off guard uh, on 412 and 25. And in fact, when we broke for the day in terms of who owed what, us, the Association Alpha, we owed nothing. The company, everything in play was over on the company side. They did give us a proposal back, and we had a really good discussion about that. That I think was a microcosm of this week. Overall, like I said, it was a good week. And so when we get back together, we're gonna give a section 412 and 25, and it's our hopes, and I think the company shares those as well, is that we can get 412 and 25 put to bed, and then we're talking about retirement pay and scope. And so that kind of leads me to this, in that at some point when you do these negotiations, there becomes a window of opportunity uh, to culminate the deal. And I'm not suggesting that the window's open and that's what's happening right now. But if a window has latches, I don't think it's I'm getting out over my skis, and where I subjectively am saying that, well, maybe the latches on the windows became unlocked. We certainly hope that the window does come open in the near future. I think that'd be great for everybody, because it's obviously, as we've said over and over again, it's it's gone on for far too long. But I think this week was the best week we've had since we've been negotiating, in terms of uh, subjects covered and possibilities discussed. And I think we ended up where we needed to be this week. And I look forward to when we get back together, with the company, to continue that.
Yeah, it's good to hear productivity being made and
Right,
hopefully moving forward. I guess obviously TBD. I know, like as you said, it's a
right.
fast moving ball game with a lot of variables. But pivoting here just a little bit, I did get called this week for the polling from the University of New Hampshire. Can we talk a little bit about? I mean, why is the negotiating committee still doing polling? What is the point behind it? I mean,
Sure.
what do you have to say about it?
Our committee loves polling, and for several reasons. I think it's important right from the outset, though, John, that you understand we're not driven by the polling. Uh, we have spent a lot of time through this process, as did the previous negotiating committee. We interacting with the pilots, either it's in person or via text, phone, or darts. And there's been contract surveys. The polling is different than a survey, right? The survey, everybody has a chance to fill it out. Anybody who's a member, you could get some selection bias in there. It's like, who usually who usually fills out, hey, how was your stay at this hotel? Sometimes, most of the time, it's the people who didn't have a very enjoyable experience, right? So you get some selection bias. The polling is being done by UNH, and I'm going to give a little brief history lesson here. Uh, I've worked over the years with a gentleman named Phil Comstock, outstanding guy. Uh, at one time, his company, or his was called the Wilson Center for Public Research, I believe was the name. But the FedEx pilots were one of Phil's first customers. Phil's ended up working with UNH, and has been and done all sorts of polling for us and for the ALPA and other entities throughout the years. And Phil, his methodology is so accurate that in the negotiations that I've participated in, he was able to predict the ratification rate within about 5 percentage points each time. So there's certainly there's method to his madness and what he's doing or has done. We've spent a lot of time talking with Phil. He retired earlier in this year, actually 1st of January. Um, but we're continuing to work with UNH, and we're able, because we have a very good understanding of how the polling works, and so does ALPA's ENFA. We're tied in very tight with their economic and financial analysis group. Um, the polling goes on, and we're going to continue to poll up until we get a TA every 6 weeks. There's the one going on right now. Started last Monday. It'll go on for another week or so. They scientifically tap into 600 of our pilots, and they ask questions. And there's a reason we don't tell you what the questions are ahead of time, because a first blush response speaks volume. And what we use that for is, if you're a bomber dude, it's to let or you could go, oh, yeah, it's the cross check, you're good IP inbound to the target. Or if you're a fighter pilot, you're tracking the right direction to the merge and what's going on. And so it gives us an excellent pulse of what's going on with the pilots. It knows where we've got room to maneuver and where we don't have room to maneuver. Uh, and it's just an excellent quality control of where we are. What we don't want to have happen is not be aware where the pilots are, and then we have the sand. I talked about it last week. The sand shifted underneath uh, everybody's feet in the last round of bargaining. So we're trying to stay on top of that. And is it closely held? It sure is. Sometimes when we are at the table, we'll mention something and they go, well, do you have polling to support that? Yeah, we do. So the polling is vitally important to us, and it will continue to be that way. So, hey, if you get that call, please take it. And, let me just touch on this. I've been here for a little while, and I know that our negotiating committee is the most transparent one I've ever been around. And we're going to continue to be as transparent as we humanly possibly can up until it adversely affects us at the table. I can't just vomit out everything. If I was going to do that, I might as well take a tape recorder into the negotiation sessions and just play it, and everybody can hear what's gone on back and forth. We're charged with representing you and everybody else, to equally two important tasks: not to enter into a bad deal and to enter into a deal that adequately represents your contribution to the company's bottom line. And the same thing with the polling. We are using that as like I said, for about the fifth time probably. It's a great cross check for us. It lets us know we're on target, we're over the target, or we've completely missed the boat. We're not opposed. Even though ALPA's informed us, Air Canada, when they were recently polling or negotiating, they actually had a flash poll that came out like in a text thing, because they had a difficult subject in bargaining. It was like a 2 or 3 question, text poll. We might do that. I don't know. We haven't felt we hit the need on that, but that's something we're not opposed to looking at. So that was kind of a long-winded answer there.
No, it's good to know. And again, if you told us everything, I wouldn't have anything to consume my time as I cross the Atlantic or Pacific and hear all the new rumors.
Right.
So I was joking. I think my short time here, I think I've heard 500 rumors, and of which only one's come true. So
Right.
I don't know, John, I do appreciate you taking the time today. Is there any parting shots you want to leave before we circle back here probably in the next couple of weeks, I would imagine?
Yeah. So we're going to put out a written update, a written one, because not everybody wants to look at my mug for 20
Same.
minutes and have to endure looking at me just to gain information. So we'll put out an update, and on our task list is section 412 and 25. That's all we owe right now. We're going to take another deep dive. We've taken a lot of deep dives, but we're going to take another deep dive into 412 and 25, and be prepared to re-engage, and we'll stay in touch with everybody. If there's anything that develops that we need to let you know, we'll let you know, because the secret to this success is for us to be in sync with you and the other however many pilots there are right now. That's how we're going to get through this together. We need to be in alignment with the MEC, who has to be in alignment with you. We think we are right now, and we look forward that sometime, hopefully, sometime soon, we can say, yeah, we're starting to get into the end game. We're not there now, but I can see a credible path going forward, I think is a good way to say it.
Yeah, good to hear. John, thanks for the time, and thanks for you and your teams, all their work.
You bet, John. Have a great weekend.
You too. Cheers.
Cheers.